What is up guys, Jarv here, back today jumping into Destiny 2. Now in today's video we're taking a look at every single weapon that's going to be sunset at the end of Season 12. There are 21 weapons that are being sunset. We're going to break them all down and see if there's any worthy replacements, but also highlight any gaps in the weapon loadout. So if you want to find out the full list, be sure to stick around and enjoy the video. If you do enjoy the video, be sure to leave a rating down below. That super helps me out here on the channel. And if you're new here or you want to keep up to date with the latest Destiny 2 content, then be sure to hit subscribe as well. Now without further delay guys, let's jump into the video. Now with the last few weeks of Season of the Hunt underway, it's time to start looking forward to Season 13, and with that in mind today we're going to take a look at the weapons in Season 12 that are going to be sunset at the end of the current season. Now sunsetting doesn't mean that these weapons are going to be taken out of your inventory, but it does mean they won't be infusible up to the new power cap for Season 13. So with that in mind, whilst you can still use them in any normal content, when it comes to end game PvE or PvP, they will be ineffective compared to other weapons. And we're going to break these down in alphabetical order, and as I said in the intro, there are 21 in total, so we'll go through these as quickly as we possibly can. Now the first one we're going to take a look at is the Breach Light. This was a legendary Kinetic sidearm. Now the key part with this sidearm is that it's an aggressive frame. It's a 325 rounds per minute sidearm. It's a very good sidearm. It had some excellent rolls back in Season of Dawn, but actually at the end of the current season there'll be no worthy replacement. So if you want an aggressive Kinetic sidearm, then you're going to need to keep your eyes peeled to see what new weapons get added in Season 13. Now next up we have the Buzzard. This is a legendary Kinetic sidearm as well. This one though is 300 rounds per minute. This one was introduced again back in Season of Dawn, and as you can see it's an adaptive frame. Now this was one of the original ritual weapons that was introduced with Destiny 2, and whilst it doesn't have a direct replacement, Drang is still available as a Kinetic sidearm with the same rounds per minute. So if you like to use sidearms in the Kinetic slot, especially this archetype, then Drang is probably your worthy alternative, and it still pairs excellently with Stern as well, making a formidable pair, especially in the Crucible. Next up we have the Alpha FR4. This was a legendary energy fusion rifle. This one was a high impact frame, so 860 RPM as a result. This one wasn't hugely popular and hasn't really had its opportunity in the sun. However, as a solar fusion rifle, we have a few alternatives moving forward. We have the Glacier class, which was introduced with the Dawning event just recently, but we also have the Exile's Curse from Trials of Osiris, which are the two remaining fusions, which are 860 RPM, but also solar too. So if you want to continue to use solar fusion rifles moving forward, said no one ever, then the Glacier class was probably your best opportunity to get one in the Dawning event. Now this is swiftly followed by the Gallant Charge, again a legendary fusion rifle, also high impact frame, also solar, and also 860 RPM. Now the same principles apply here. If you got the Glacier class from the Dawning or have a good Exile's Curse from Trials of Osiris, you will still be set going into Season 13. Next up is Hawthorne's Field Forge Shotgun, a personal favourite of mine. This is a legendary Kinetic shotgun. This one is a lightweight frame, so 80 rounds per minute, and it has some pretty incredible rolls. For the most part, it's only ever formed part of the world loot pool, and the only one that can really sort of find itself almost in the same category is the Tall and Trouble. Now whilst it's not exactly the same, it is still one of the only world drop shotguns available in the game. If you want another Kinetic shotgun that's legendary though, Astral Horizon is probably your best alternative. That's an aggressive frame though, and you'll need to jump into Trials of Osiris to get it. Now next on the list is Infinite Paths 8. This is a lightweight frame legendary energy pulse rifle, so therefore 450 RPM. Now in terms of worthy replacements, Chattering Bone will always be available as a raid legendary weapon. It will never be sunset, and that will be one of the last 450 pulse rifles available in the game that fits in your Kinetic slot. If you're looking for a energy weapon though, then the Zhuan 7 Arc Pulse Rifle is your only alternative. Now another favourite of mine, and we have the Jack Queen King 3. This is an adaptive frame hand cannon that again sits in your energy slot and is 140 rounds per minute. Now if you're looking for another arc hand cannon that sits in your energy slot, then the Nation of Beast from the Last Wish raid is another raid hand cannon that's already 140 RPM and is almost the same gun with the exact same element as this. And as a raid legendary, it's a weapon you won't have to worry about sunsetting either. Next up we have the Komodo 4FR. This is a legendary power linear fusion rifle, a precision frame one, so 533 in terms of its charge time. Now in terms of linear fusion rifles, it doesn't actually leave us many options at all going into Season 13. In fact, the only fusion rifle that is not going to be sunset at the end of this season is Corsair's Wrath. And that was introduced just this season as part of Wrathborn hunts. So if you like to use linear fusion rifles, then be sure to get a good roll on the Corsair's Wrath, because at the end of this season there won't be any other alternatives for you. Now next up, a very popular one, and this is the Last Hope, the original replacement for the Recluse. This is a legendary energy sidearm though, and 491 in terms of its rounds per minute. It had some pretty incredible rolls that made it very potent, especially inside PvP. Now if you need a replacement for your Last Hope, the only one that has a very similar weapon frame that is available is the Last Dance. However, it doesn't have the same perk pool available to it as the Last Hope did. So let's hope, fingers crossed for next season, that we get a good legendary energy sidearm. Now next in line is the Line in the Sand, another legendary power linear fusion rifle. This one also 533 in terms of its charge time, a very popular one. Some fantastic rolls on this one, especially for PvE, but sadly at the end of this season it will no longer be viable. So the only linear fusion rifle available to you will be Corsair's Wrath, and as we've said earlier, this was introduced just this season with the Crow over with the Wrathborn hunt. So if you don't have a good one already, be sure to hop over there and farm one out ahead at the end of the season. Now next up is Martyr's Retribution, a legendary energy grenade launcher. This one's very unique in that it's a wave frame, so a single shot handheld grenade launcher that releases a wave of energy when it makes contact with the ground. Now it's 72 rounds per minute. Now one was introduced this season, the Deafening Whisper, which is also a wave frame, with the exception of instead of being solar, that one is void. Now Martyr's Retribution will sunset at the end of this season, making the Deafening Whisper the only waveframe grenade launcher in the game. So if you don't have a good one already, I highly recommend that you take the time to get one before the end of the current season. Now moving on to rocket launchers now, we have the Moss Epoch 3, a legendary power rocket launcher, an aggressive frame, so 25 rounds per minute. Now in terms of rockets, they're not used all that often. We have Sub-Zero Salvo, which can easily be obtained over on Europa. So if you want a very good rocket launcher, then I highly recommend that you go after the Sub-Zero, as it can come with chain reaction, which is an incredible perk that I covered also in a recent video. Now another personal favourite of mine, especially this season, and it's the Old Fashioned, a legendary kinetic hand cannon adaptive frame. So the original 140 RPM hand cannon, I have Feeding Frenzy kill clip on mine. I've absolutely loved it this season. However, it will be sunset at the end of season 12. Now a worthy alternative, at least I guess, is the Dire Promise, as it has one more season left before that gets sunset. Sadly though, that is no longer obtainable, so if you don't have a good Dire Promise, then sadly we'll need to look elsewhere for that Kinetic 140 RPM hand cannon. Now our first scout rifle, the Patron of Lost Causes, this has actually been very good this season. This is a legendary kinetic scout rifle. It's a lightweight frame, 200 RPM, and could come with some pretty incredible rolls, making it very good not just for PvE but also in PvP if you want to challenge those snipers. Sadly, this is no longer obtainable, and sadly one that will be sunsetting at the end of this season. If you're looking for a replacement though for your Patron of Lost Causes, then Nightwatch is still viable and available and drops very often as part of the world loot pool, so hand in those gunsmith materials to see if you can get your hands on a good one. Now next up is Saint 14's trusty shotgun, the Perfect Paradox. This is a legendary kinetic shotgun, a rapid fire frame, so 140 rounds per minute. Now in terms of kinetic shotguns, there isn't actually any replacements directly that are rapid fire frame. It leaves 3 kinetic shotguns going into next season, with 2 of those coming from end game PvE or PvP, that being the Astral Horizon and the Heritage. Those can be obtained from Trials with Osiris and the Deepstone Crypt Raid respectively if you don't have them already. Next up, another rocket launcher, the Pyroclastic Flow. This was the one from the season pass back in season 9. This is a legendary power rocket launcher. This one's precision frame, so 15 rounds per minute once again. Now as before, the Sub-Zero Salvo is available as part of the Europa set, so I highly recommend taking the time to farm one of those out if you're really into your rocket launchers. And next up is a fan favourite, and this is the Python, the ritual weapon back from season 9, the legendary energy shotgun, an aggressive frame that had a pretty incredible role. Things like Overflow was extremely popular on this shotgun, especially as an aggressive frame which allowed for high damage and a huge magazine. Now as things stand, this is the last aggressive energy shotgun currently available in Destiny 2. The only other one if you have it, is Felwinter's, and these two shotguns are for two entirely different activities. Python is fantastic for gambit and strikes, but isn't always the best option inside the Crucible. However, Felwinter's is a solar energy shotgun, is excellent inside the Crucible, but doesn't hit the right notes in gambit and strikes. As we currently stand, there's no direct replacement for the Python, so fingers crossed we see one in Season 13. Now next up is the Still Feather Repeater. This is a legendary kinetic auto rifle. This one though is rapid fire frame, so 720 rounds per minute. Now this is the only 720 RPM kinetic auto rifle that I'm aware of. There's a couple of great ones in the energy slot, things like the Arctic Haze, but also the Reckless Oracle, which you can get from Europa and the Garden of Salvation raid respectively. So if you don't have a good 720 RPM auto rifle at least, be sure to jump into those activities now to make sure you're not disappointed going into Season 13. Now next on our list is the Traveler's Judgment 5, a personal favourite of mine once again. This is a legendary energy sidearm and 491 rounds per minute. Now much like the Last Hope that we covered earlier in the video, Last Dance is a possible replacement as it sits in the same slot, however it has different perk options, so fingers crossed we get some additional sidearms, especially in the energy slot going into next season. Now the penultimate weapon on our list today is the Trophy Hunter, an absolute favourite of mine, the legendary energy sniper rifle. It's a favourite because it's an aggressive frame, it has 3 rounds in a magazine, but it could roll things like triple tap and also Vorpal, which made it very potent and powerful, especially against bosses. Sadly, it gets sunset at the end of this season, and as things currently stand, there is no replacement for this going into next season. This is the only Void sniper currently available that's an aggressive frame at least, so it will leave a major hole in our inventories going into the new season. And the final one on our list, and a weapon that seems like it's been around forever, is Uriel's Gift, the legendary energy auto rifle. This is a precision frame, so 420 rounds per minute, and it's the only arc auto rifle left that's 450 in the game. Now there are other 450 RPM auto rifles, for example the 2 in the Festival of the Lost event, however both of those sit in the kinetic slot. Now Uriel's Gift has been around since the beta days when it had its high caliber rounds and it was potent inside Crucible, so it will be a sad day on the end of this season when this finally gets sunset and is no longer viable in end game content. So there we have it guys, a full list and breakdown of all 21 weapons that are going to be sunset at the end of Season 12. Now with new playlist weapons, new ritual weapons and new trials loot to chase next season, here's hoping that the new activity for Season 13 also introduces weapons too. If all those things can align, then we could potentially look at replacing a lot of the weapons in this list. But as always guys, be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Are you going to miss any of these weapons, and how do you feel about sunsetting moving forward? Now if you have enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a rating down below, that super helps me out here on the channel. And if you're new here or you want to keep up to date with the latest Destiny 2 content, then be sure to hit subscribe as well. I'm going to jump back into the game as always guys, but I will catch you all again very soon.